Hello everyone. So yesterday I made a video. I read chapter, I believe it was 8, yes, of I Am Number 4 by Pittacus Lore. And I was at my grandparents' house. And a couple things happened. There was a phone call in between and some loud noises, running water, people in the picture, which is perfectly fine. But today, as you can see, I'm in a new location. I'm actually at my uncle's house. And it just so happens that the kitchen is the only place with enough light to do the recording. So I'm kind of hopping all over the place until I can get home, which will be at the end of the month. And, so bear with me, and I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the videos. Thank you all for the comments, and I'm really happy that you're liking this book, because let me tell you, it's amazing and it's going to get better. Alright, without further ado, I'm going to start to read chapter 9. Start the timer here because I'm trying to keep all my videos within 20 minutes. Chapter 9. Every muscle in my body's flexed, everything tense. Henry jumps through the doorway and I'm ready to follow. I can feel the thud-thud-thud in my chest. My fingers are white-knuckled around the piece of wood still burning. A gust of wind bursts through the door, and the fire dances in my hand and crawls up my wrist. No one is there. All at once, Henry's body relaxes, and he chuckles, looking down at his feet. There, looking up at Henry through the tops of his eyes, is the same beagle I saw yesterday at school. The dog wags his tail and paws at the ground. Henry reaches down and pets him. Then the dog pushes past and trots into the house with his tongue dangling. "What's he doing here?" I ask. "You know this dog?" "I saw him at school. He was following me around yesterday after you dropped me off." I put the piece of wood back and wipe my hand on my jeans, leaving a trail of black ash down the front. The dog sits at my feet and looks up expectantly, his tail thumping against the hardwood floor. I sit on the couch and watch both fires burn. Now that the excitement of the situation is over, my mind goes back to what I just saw in my vision. I can still hear the screams in my ears, still see the way the blood shimmered in the grass in the moonlight, still see the bodies in fallen trees, the red glow in the eyes of the beasts of Mogador, and the terror in the eyes of the Lorik. I look at Henry. "I saw what happened, at least the beginning of it." He nods. "I thought you might." "I could hear your voice. Were you talking to me?" "Yes." "I don't understand," I say. "It was a massacre. There was too much hatred for them to only be interested in our resources. There was more to it than that." Henry sighs and sits on the coffee table across from me. The dog jumps into my lap. I pet him. He's filthy, his coat stiff and oily under my hand. There's a tag in the shape of a football attached to the front of his collar. It's an old tag, most of the brown paint worn away. I take it in my hand, the number 19 on one side, the name Bernie Kosar on the other. "Bernie Kosar?" I say. The dog wags his tail. "I guess that's his name. Same as that dude in the poster on my wall. Popular guy around here, I guess." I run my hand down his back. "He doesn't seem like he has a home," I say, "and he's hungry. Somehow I can tell." Henry nods. He looks down at Bernie Kosar. The dog stretches out, rests his chin on his paws, and closes his eyes. I flip open the lighter and hold the flame over my fingers, then my palm, then run it up the underside of my arm. Only when the flame is an inch or two away from my elbow do I feel the burn. Whatever Henry has done has worked, and my resistance has spread. I wonder how long it will take until all of me becomes resistant. "So what happened?" I ask. Henry takes a deep breath. "I've had those visions, too. So real it's like you're there. I never realized how bad it all was. I mean, I know you had told me, but I didn't really truly understand it until I saw it with my own eyes. The Mogadorians are different than we are, secretive and manipulative, untrusting of almost everything. They have certain powers, but they're not powers like ours. They are gregarious and thrive in crowded cities. The more densely populated, the better. That is why you and I stay out of cities now. Even when living in one might make it easier to blend in, it would make it a hell of a lot easier for them to blend in as well." About 100 years ago, Mogador began to die, much like Lorien did 25,000 years before that. They didn't respond the way we did, though. Didn't understand it the way the human population is beginning to now. They ignored it. They killed their oceans and flooded their rivers and lakes with waste and sewage to keep adding to their cities. The vegetation started to die, which caused the herbivores to die, and then the carnivores weren't far behind. They knew they had to do something drastic. Henry closes his eyes, remains silent for a full minute. "Do you know the closest life-sustaining planet to Mogador?" he finally asks. "Yes, it's Lorien, or was, I guess." Henry nods. "Yes, it is Lorien. And I'm sure you know now that it was our resources they were after." I nod. Bernie Kosar lifts his head and lets out a deep yawn. Henry heats a cooked chicken breast in the microwave, cuts it into strips, then carries the plate back to the couch and sets it in front of the dog. He eats it with ferocity, as though he hasn't eaten in days. "There are a large number of Mogadorians on Earth," Henry continues. "I don't know how many are here, but I can feel them when I sleep. Sometimes I can see them in my dreams. I can never tell where they are or what they are saying, but I see them, and I don't think the 6 of you are the only reason there are so many of them here." "What do you mean? Why else would they be here?" Henry looks me in the eye. "Do you know what the second closest life-sustaining planet is to Mogador?" I nod. "It's Earth, isn't it?" Mogador is double the size of Lorien, but Earth is 5 times the size of Mogador. In terms of defense, Earth is better prepared for an offensive because of its size. The Mogadorians will need to understand this planet better before they can attack. I can't necessarily tell you how we were defeated so easily because there's much of it I still don't understand. But I can say for sure that part of it was a combination of their knowledge of our planet and our people, and the fact that we had no defense other than our intelligence and the guards' legacies. Say what you will about the Mogadorians, but they are brilliant strategists when it comes to war. We sit through another silence, the wind still roaring outside. "I don't think they're interested in taking Earth's resources," Henry says. I sigh and look up at him. "Why not?" "Mogador is still dying. Even though they've patched the more pressing matters, the planet's death is inevitable, and they know it. I think they're planning to kill the humans. I think they want to make Earth their permanent home." I bathe Bernie Kosar after dinner, using shampoo and conditioner. I brush him with an old comb left in one of the drawers from the last tenant. He looks and smells much better, but his collar still stinks. I throw it away. Before going to bed, I hold open the front door for him, but he isn't interested in going back outside. Instead, he lies down on the floor and rests his chin on his paws. I feel his desire to stay in the house with us. I wonder if he can feel my desire for the same. "I think we have a new pet," Henry says. I smile. As soon as I saw him earlier, I was hoping Henry would let me keep him. "Looks like it," I say. A half hour later, I crawl into bed and Bernie Kosar jumps up with me and curls into a ball at my feet. He is snoring within minutes. I lie on my back for a while, staring into the darkness, a million different thoughts swimming in my head. Images from the war, the greedy, hungry look of the Mogadorians, the angry, hard look of the beasts, the death and the blood. I think of the beauty of Lorien. Will it again sustain life? Or will Henry and I go on waiting here on Earth forever? I try to push thoughts and images from my mind, but they don't stay gone for long. I get up and pace for a while. Bernie Kosar lifts his head and watches me, but then drops it and falls back to sleep. I sigh, grab my phone from the nightstand and go through it to make sure Mark James didn't mess with anything. Henry's number is still there, but it's no longer the only entry. Another number, listed under the name of Sarah Hart, has been added. After the last bell rang, and before coming to my locker, Sarah added her number to my phone. I close the phone, set it on the nightstand, and smile. 2 minutes pass, and I check my phone again to make sure I wasn't seeing things. I wasn't. I snap it shut and set it down, only to lift it again 5 minutes later just to look at her number again. I don't know how long it takes to fall asleep, but eventually I do. When I wake in the morning, my phone is still in my hand, resting against my chest. Alright, so we're only 8 minutes and 30 seconds in. That was the end of Chapter 9. I'm going to look to see how long Chapter 10 is, to see if I should read it. That's kind of a long chapter. See, I don't I don't know if I'd get it done in 12 minutes. No, I guess we'll take a shot at it. Okay, chapter 10. Bernie Kosar is scratching at my bedroom door when I wake. I let him outside. He patrols the yard, rushing along with his nose to the ground. Once he's covered all four corners, he bolts across the yard and disappears into the woods. I close the door and jump into the shower. I walk out 10 minutes later, and he's back inside, sitting on the couch. His tail wags when he sees me. You let him in? I ask Henry, who is at the kitchen table with his laptop open and 4 newspapers stacked in front of him. Yes. After a quick breakfast, we head out. Bernie Kosar rushes ahead of us, then stops and sits, looking up at the passenger door of the truck. That's kind of weird, don't you think? I say. Henry shrugs. Apparently he's no stranger to car rides. Let him in. I open the door and he jumps in. He sits in the middle seat with his tongue dangling. When we pull out of the driveway, he moves into my lap and paws at the window. I roll it down and he sticks half his body out, mouth still open, the wind flapping his ears. 3 miles later, Henry pulls into the school. I open the door and Bernie Kosar jumps out ahead of me. I lift him back into the truck, but he jumps right back out. I lift him back in again and have to block him from jumping out while I close the truck door. He stands on his hind legs with his front paws on the ledge of the door, the window still down. I pet him on the head. Have your gloves? Henry asks. Yep. Phone? Yep. How do you feel? I feel good, I say. Okay. Call me if you have any sort of trouble. He pulls away and Bernie Kosar watches from the back window until the truck disappears around the turn. I feel a similar nervousness as I did the day before, but for different reasons. Part of me wants to see Sarah right away, though part of me hopes that I don't see her at all. I'm not sure what I'll say to her. What if I can't think of anything at all and stand there, looking foolish? What if she's with Mark when I see her? Should I acknowledge her and risk another confrontation? Or just walk by and pretend that I don't see either of them? At the very least, I'll see them both in second period. There's no getting around that. I head to my locker. My bag is filled with books I was supposed to read the night before but never opened. Too many thoughts and images running through my head. They haven't gone away, and it's hard to imagine they ever will. It was all so different from what I expected. Death isn't like what they show you in the movies. The sounds, the looks, the smells. So different. At my locker, I notice immediately that something's off. The metal handle is covered with dirt, or what looks like dirt. I'm not sure if I should open it, but then I take a deep breath and force the handle up. The locker is half filled with manure, and as I swing the door open, much of it comes pouring out onto the floor, covering my shoes. The smell is horrendous. I slam the door shut. Sam Good was standing behind it, and his sudden appearance from out of nowhere startles me. He's looking forlorn, wearing a white NASA t-shirt, only slightly different from the one he wore yesterday. Hi, Sam, I say. He looks down at the pile of manure on the floor, then back at me. You too? I ask. He nods. I'm going to the principal's office. Do you want to come? He shakes his head, then turns and walks away without saying a word. I walk to Mr. Harris's office, knock on his door, then enter without waiting for his reply. He's sitting behind his desk, wearing a tie that is tiled with the school mascot, no less than 20 tiny pirate heads scattered across the front of it. He smiles proudly at me. It's a big day, John, he says. I don't know what he's talking about. The reporters from the Gazette should be here within the hour. Front page! Then I remember. Mark James's big interview with the local paper. You must be very proud, I say. I'm proud of each and every one of Paradise's students. The smile doesn't leave his face. He leans back in his chair, locks his fingers together, and rests his hands on his stomach. What can I do for you? I just wanted to let you know that my locker was filled with manure this morning. What do you mean, filled? I mean the whole thing was full of manure. With manure? He asks confusedly. Yes. He laughs. I'm taken aback by his total lack of regard, and anger surges through me. My face is warm. I wanted to let you know so it could be cleaned. Sam Good's locker is filled with it too. He sighs and shakes his head. I'll send Mr. Hobbs, the janitor, down immediately, and we'll make a full investigation. We both know who did it, Mr. Harris. He flashes a patronizing grin at me. I'll handle the investigation, Mr. Smith. There's no point in saying anything further, so I walk out of his office and head to the bathroom to run cold water over my hands and face. I have to calm down. I don't want to have to wear the gloves again today. Maybe I should do nothing at all, just let it slide. Will that end it? And besides, what other choice is there? I'm outmatched, and my only ally is a 100-pound sophomore with a penchant for the extraterrestrial. Maybe that isn't the whole truth. Maybe I have another ally in Sarah Hart. I look down. My hands are fine, no glow. I walk out of the bathroom. The janitor is already sweeping the manure from my locker, lifting out books and placing them in the trash. I walk past him and into the classroom and wait for the class to start. Rules of grammar are discussed, the main topic being the difference between a gerund and a verb, and why a gerund is not a verb. I pay closer attention than I did the day before, but as the end of the period nears, I start to get nervous about the next class. But not because I might see Mark, because I might see Sarah. Will she smile at me again today? I think it'll be best to arrive before she does so I can find my seat and watch her walk in. That way I can see if she says hello to me first. When the bell rings, I dash out of class and rush down the hall. I'm the first one to enter astronomy. The classroom fills and Sam sits beside me again. Just before the bell rings, Sarah and Mark enter together. She's dressed in a white button-up shirt and black pants. She smiles at me before sitting down. I smile back. Mark doesn't look my way at all. I can still smell the manure on my shoes, or maybe the odor is coming from Sam's. He pulls a pamphlet from his bag with the title, "They Walk Among Us," on the cover. It looks as though it was printed in somebody's basement. Sam flips to an article in the center and starts reading intently. I look at Sarah, 4 desks in front of me, at her hair pulled back in a ponytail. I can see the nape of her slender neck. She crosses her legs and sits straight in her chair. I wish I were sitting beside her, that I could reach over and take her hand in mine. I wish it were 8th period already. I wonder if I'll be her partner in home ec again. Miss Burton begins lecturing. She's still on the topic of Saturn. Sam takes out a sheet of paper and begins scribbling wildly, pausing at times to consult an article in the magazine he has opened beside him. I look over his shoulder and read the title, "Entire Montana Town Abducted by Aliens." Before last night, I would have never pondered such a theory, but Henry believes the Mogadorians are plotting to take over Earth, and I must admit, even though the theory in Sam's publication is ludicrous, at its most basic level, there might be something there. I know for a fact that the Lorik have visited Earth many times over the life of this planet. We watched Earth develop, watched it through the times of growth and abundance when everything moved, and through the times of ice and snow when nothing did. We helped the humans, taught them to make fire, gave them the tools to develop speech and language, which is why our language is so similar to the language of Earth. And even though we never abducted humans, that doesn't mean it's never been done. I look at Sam. I've never met somebody with a fascination in aliens to the point of reading and taking notes on conspiracy theories. Just then, the door opens and Mr. Harris sticks his smiling face in. "Sorry to interrupt, Miss Burton. I'm going to have to snag Mark from you. The Gazette reporters are here to interview him for the paper," he says loudly enough so everyone in the class can hear. Mark stands, grabs his bag, and casually strolls out of the room. From the doorway, I see Mr. Harris pat him on the back. Then I look back at Sarah, wishing I could sit in the empty seat beside her. 4th period is physical education. Sam is in my class. After changing, we sit beside each other on the gymnasium floor. He's wearing tennis shoes, shorts, a t-shirt 2 or 3 sizes too large. He looks like a stork, all knees and elbows, somewhat lanky even though he's short. The gym teacher, Mr. Wallace, stands firmly in front of us, his feet shoulder-width apart, his hands clenched into fists on his hips. "All right, guys, listen up. This is probably the last chance we'll get to work outdoors, so make it count. 1-mile run as hard as you can. Your times will be noted and saved for when we run the mile again in the spring. So run hard." The outside track is made of synthetic rubber. It circles around the football field, and beyond it are some woods that I imagine might lead to our house, but I'm not sure. The wind is cool and goosebumps traverse the length of Sam's arms. He tries to rub them away. "Have you run this before?" I ask. Sam nods. "We ran it the 2nd week of class." "What was your time?" 9 minutes and 45 seconds. I look at him. "I thought skinny kids are supposed to be fast." "Shut up," he says. I run side by side with Sam towards the back of the crowd. 4 laps. That is how many times I must circle the track to have run a mile. Halfway around, I begin to pull away from Sam. I wonder how fast I could run a mile if I really tried. 2 minutes? Maybe 1? Maybe less? The exercise feels great, and without paying much attention, I pass the lead runner. Then I slow and feign exhaustion. When I do, I see a brown and white blur come dashing out of the bushes by the entrance of the grandstand and head straight towards me. My mind is playing tricks on me, I think. I look away and keep running. I pass the teacher. He's holding a stopwatch. He yells words of encouragement, but he's looking behind me, away from the track. I follow his eyes. They are fixated on the brown and white blur. It is still coming straight for me, and all at once the images from the day before come rushing back. The Mogadorian beasts. There were small ones, too, with teeth that glinted in the light like razor blades, vast creatures, intent on killing. I start sprinting. I run halfway around the track in a dead sprint before I turn back around. There's nothing behind me. I've outrun it. 20 seconds have passed. Then I turn back around, and the thing is right in front of me. It must have cut across the field. I stop dead in my tracks, and my perspective corrects itself. It's Bernie Kosar. He's sitting in the middle of the track with his tongue dangling, tail wagging. "Bernie Kosar," I yell. "You scared the hell out of me." I resume running at a slow pace, and Bernie Kosar runs alongside me. I hope nobody noticed how fast I ran. Then I stop and bend over as though I have cramps and can't catch my breath. I walk for a bit. Then I jog a little. Before I finish the second lap, 2 people have passed me. "Smith, what happened? You were dusting everyone," Mr. Wallace yells when I run by him. I breathe heavily for show. "I have asthma," I say. He shakes his head in disapproval. "And here I thought I had this year's Ohio State track champion in my class." I shrug and keep going, stopping every so often to walk. Bernie Kosar stays with me, sometimes walking, sometimes trotting. When I start the last lap, Sam catches up to me and we run together. His face is bright red. "So what were you reading in astronomy today?" I ask. "An entire Montana town abducted by aliens?" He grins at me. "Yeah, that's the theory," he says, somewhat shyly, as though embarrassed. Alright, so we are a little over 20 minutes. We're 20 minutes and 45 seconds. Let's see, there's like 3 more pages, front and back, kind of a few. So I'm going to call it quits right there. We're at the top of page 106, and that's where I'll pick up again in the next video. So that's Reading by Ree. I am number 4 by Pittacus Lore. Thank you so much. Bye.